Hello, listener. Welcome back to your favorite place to drift away. Tonight, we won't rush. But first, before the story begins, make sure you subscribe, give this a like, and let us know in the comments, what city are you listening from, and what time is it where you are? Tonight's tale is about fear, about friendship, and about a very, very strange little town. A place called Derry. There's a clown that lives there. But don't worry, it's only a clown. And now, let's begin. Very, very slowly. Chapter 1. In Derry, nothing is ever quite right. You live in a place where things don't quite stay where they're supposed to. The streets feel too quiet even when they're full of cars. The rain sounds just a little louder than it should. And the air? It hums softly, as if the town itself is trying to tell you something, but always forgets how the sentence ends. You live in Derry. No one visits Derry on purpose. No one moves here with great excitement. They just arrive, stay, and slowly forget that they ever wanted anything else. And the children? Well, the children are always told not to wander off. But they do. And sometimes they don't come back. Tonight, the sky is gray like an old shirt. The clouds hang low, just heavy enough to soak your shoes. And little Georgie Denbrough, 7 years old, is running through the puddles in his yellow raincoat. His boots splash. His arms flail. He laughs. He's holding something precious. A small paper boat. It's not just paper. It's folded with care by his older brother Bill, who's too sick to come outside today. So Georgie promised to be careful. He always promises, and then he always forgets. The boat slips from his hand. It sails along the curb, through the rushing water, wobbling and tilting, like a tiny explorer on a cardboard sea. Georgie runs beside it. His laugh rises over the wind. And then the boat vanishes. Just like that, down into the dark, into the open mouth of a storm drain. Georgie kneels beside the curb. He looks into the blackness. It smells like rust and mold and long-forgotten candy. And then, a pair of eyes, blue, amused, too still. A voice follows, soft and smooth, like a balloon drifting against your cheek. Hiya, Georgie. The voice says his name. Georgie doesn't remember telling it. Inside the drain, there's a man, a clown, white face, red nose, big smile, too many teeth. His name is Pennywise. But Georgie doesn't know that. Not yet. Pennywise offers him the boat. He says it floated all the way down here. He says there's a circus too, just beyond the shadows. Cotton candy, rides, popcorn. And Georgie, he's just a little boy. And he doesn't want to disappoint his brother. So, he reaches forward. The drain smiles wider. And somewhere far away, in a part of the world you'll never visit, a very old thing awakens. But don't worry, that's just the way Derry says hello.
Chapter 2. Someone lives in the sewer, and it's not a cat. You probably don't spend much time thinking about storm drains. They're just there, waiting, gurgling, occasionally swallowing things that aren't quite meant to be swallowed. Rubber balls, mittens, shoelaces, sometimes people. But in Derry, storm drains are more than just part of the plumbing. They are mouths. They are tunnels. They are doorways. And behind them, something waits. It isn't a raccoon. It isn't a cat. It isn't a very lonely janitor. No, it's something much, much older. Something that doesn't have a name. Not really. But sometimes it calls itself Pennywise. And when it does, it puts on a clown suit. Not because it likes children, but because children taste better when they're scared. And clowns, well, they tend to do the trick. You don't know how long he's been here. Some say millions of years. Others say he fell from the stars, tucked inside an asteroid, like a nightmare that crash-landed before the dinosaurs even learned how to be scary. For a long time, he slept, beneath the roots and rocks, dreaming of children he had not yet met. And then, one day, people came. They built a town. They named it Derry. They planted flowers. They opened a bakery. They smiled for photographs. And deep, deep under their shoes, the thing in the dark smiled back. Because now there was food. Delicate, frightened, full of nerves and sugar. He awoke. And every 27 years, he comes back, like a school year, or a really punctual nightmare. He doesn't just eat. That would be too simple, too boring. No, he wants you to feel it. He wants your fear to cook inside you, tenderize, soften, like marinated meat. He calls it seasoning. He calls it play. Because the thing in the drain isn't just hungry. It's patient. It watches from the dark. It listens to your footsteps. It learns your name. And when the time is right, it offers you something you didn't know you were missing. A balloon. A smile. A way back to your lost toy. But the moment you reach out, the teeth come. And Derry, as usual, keeps walking. Because in Derry, people forget. Forgetting is easier than knowing. And knowing means facing the truth. That there's something living underneath your town. And it is very, very good at pretending to be fun.
Chapter 3. Bill and Georgie, brothers divided by a storm. Before the realm, before the paper boat, before the drain even opened its grin, there were just two brothers, Bill and Georgie. You wouldn't call them perfect, but they were close. The kind of close that doesn't require many words. Because words, for Bill,
have always been a little tricky. He stutters. Not always, but enough. Especially when he's nervous, or when he's scared, or when he's thinking about things too big for his lungs. But Georgie doesn't mind. When Bill speaks, Georgie waits. And when Bill is silent, Georgie listens anyway. They share a bedroom with mismatched socks, a shelf of crooked comic books, a lamp that flickers when it rains, and a love that only children know how to hold, clumsy, wild, and unbreakably soft. On the day the storm came, Bill stayed inside with a box of tissues and a cup of flat ginger ale. He folded the paper boat himself, bent the corners just right, sealed it with wax to keep the water out. Georgie waited at the edge of the bed, eyes wide, little hands twitching with excitement. Bill handed him the boat, and Georgie smiled as if it were treasure. He ran out the door. Bill watched from the window, and the house felt a little too quiet. Sometimes, the last time you see someone, you don't know it's the last. Not until later. Not until after the search parties, after the posters, after the grown-ups start using words like accident and tragedy and there's nothing more we can do. But Bill never says those words. He doesn't believe in accidents. Not this time. He walks the neighborhood with a flashlight that needs new batteries. He talks to drains. He maps the sewers. He dreams of a paper boat, still floating somewhere, just waiting for someone to catch it. And late at night, when the wind whistles through the cracks in his window, Bill hears something. Not a voice exactly, more like a memory that refuses to be quiet. It says, "Hiya, Georgie," and Bill closes his eyes and tells himself it's just the wind, or maybe the pipes, or maybe nothing. But even then, he knows. Something took his brother, and someday he's going to find out what, even if it means stepping into the dark, even if it means learning that monsters don't always live under the bed. Sometimes they live under the street. Chapter 4: The Losers Club and All Their Little Flaws. Every town has its outsiders. Derry is no exception. But here, the outsiders find each other, slowly, quietly, like lost socks that end up in the same drawer. They call themselves the Losers Club, not because they like the word, but because the world seemed to have already chosen it for them. And when you stop fighting a name, sometimes it becomes soft, even kind. It starts with Bill, the boy who stutters, the boy who lost his brother and refused to forget. He meets Richie Tozier, a mouth that never stops, jokes piled on top of noise, piled on top of fear. If Richie isn't talking, it usually means something's wrong, or he's asleep. Then comes Eddie Kasprak. His backpack is full of pills, inhalers, ointments, and imaginary illnesses. He doesn't like dirt. He doesn't like danger. But he likes being near Bill. Stan Uris is quiet. He has clean shirts. He likes birds more than people. He counts things when he's nervous, which is often. And then there's Beverly, a redhead, a rumor, a girl with eyes like lit matches and bruises that don't always show. The boys don't know what to do around her, so mostly they look at their shoes. But Beverly doesn't mind. Shoes are sometimes better than stairs. Ben Handsome joins them too, a new kid, a soft-spoken, big-hearted architect in the making. He reads in the library when the world is too loud, and he writes poems when it's too quiet. And then comes Mike Handlin, a farm boy, a quiet observer, the only black child in a town that prefers sameness. He sees things the others don't, because he has to. Each one of them is different. Each one has a reason to feel small. But when they're together, they don't. They build a fort. They share candy. They float in the quarry and lie on sun-warmed rocks, talking about things that scare them and things that don't. For one long summer, they find comfort in each other's messiness. They don't all believe in monsters yet, but they believe in each other. And in a place like Derry, that might just be the bravest thing anyone can do. Chapter 5. Beverly's father does not respect boundaries. Not all monsters have sharp teeth. Some wear bathrobes. Some sit at the kitchen table, sipping weak coffee, asking questions that aren't really questions. Beverly knows this. She knows how to move quietly, how to keep her voice small, how to smile without meaning it. She's 12, but in some ways she's much older. The other kids hear rumors, whispers in the hallway, notes passed in class. They call her names. Names like slut, even though Beverly doesn't even know what that really means. But she knows it stings. And she knows her father hears those names too. And when he hears them, he doesn't get angry at the world. He gets quiet and stares and says things like, "You're still my little girl, right?" And Beverly says yes, because it's easier than saying no. At home, the air is thick, like wet wool. The silence moves like a second shadow. She keeps her toothbrush in a drawer instead of a cup. She locks the bathroom door even when she showers alone. She learns how to disappear without leaving. And yet, when she's with the losers, something shifts. Richie tells jokes that make her laugh. Eddie flinches when she touches his arm. Stan never meets her eyes, but always makes space beside him. Ben blushes when she's near. And Bill? Bill stutters, but when he talks to Beverly, the words come easier. They don't talk about her father, not directly. But one day she shows them the sink. It looks normal at first. just porcelain and a silver faucet. But when the water runs, something else runs with it. Thick, red, wrong. She calls them over. They come. And when they see it, they believe her. They help clean it up. They scrub. They mop. They get red on their clothes and don't even care. Because that's what friends do. They show up, even when the mess isn't theirs, even when the monster lives upstairs. And later, when Beverly lies in bed, she looks at the ceiling and thinks, maybe monsters can be beaten, even the ones who don't live in the sewers, especially those.
Chapter 6. A Love Triangle That Should Be a Nap. Love at 12 is a strange thing. It doesn't walk. It drifts. It isn't loud. It lingers. It shows up quietly, like a poem with no name. Ben Hanscom writes one. He writes it for Beverly. It's short, just a few lines, clumsy, honest, the kind of words that only come out when no one is watching. It goes like this. Your hair is winter fire, January embers. My heart burns there too. He doesn't sign it. He doesn't have to. He leaves it where she might find it. And she does. She reads it twice, then once again. She doesn't know who wrote it, but she smiles, softly, secretly. In her heart, she thinks maybe it was Bill. And Bill? Well, Bill doesn't know about the poem, but he does know about Beverly, and the way his chest feels strange and floaty when she stands too close. He watches her from the corner of his eyes, when she laughs, when she bites her thumbnail, when she ties her hair with that red ribbon that always looks like it might fly away. And sometimes, when the light is just right, Beverly looks back. Ben sees this. He notices everything. He is quiet, but he is not blind. It stings, like lemon juice on a paper cut. But he doesn't say anything. Not yet. Because love, like fear, likes to sit in silence. It likes to wait and see what happens next. Later that summer, after things get worse, after blood and drains and dreams that don't end where they're supposed to, something happens. Beverly is taken by the thing that hides beneath Derry, by the clown with a mouth full of old secrets. She sees the dead lights, a kind of light that feels like falling, a kind of brightness that forgets to be kind. And she begins to drift away. But then, someone kisses her. Not Bill, Ben. And slowly, like frost melting from a window, she wakes. She looks at him, really looks at him, and something changes. But later, when the summer ends, she still kisses Bill. It's soft. It's bittersweet, like the last bite of a popsicle before it hits the stick. Ben says nothing. He just folds the poem back into his pocket. Maybe love is a quiet thing. Maybe it waits 27 years. Maybe it never stops burning.
Chapter 7. Children disappear. Adults make tea. In Derry, the news moves slowly. It's not that people don't care. It's that caring too much can be inconvenient. Children disappear, but life continues. Lawnmowers hum. Coffee is poured. Curtains are drawn at the same exact time each evening, as if nothing strange has ever happened. Except it has, again and again. Betty Ripsome didn't come home after school. No one saw her get on the bus. Her shoes were found in the gravel, one shoelace untied. Edward Corcoran vanished 2 blocks from his own birthday party. He never opened his gifts. His cake melted in the kitchen while the guests waited. The town sighs, shakes its head, blames the river, or bad parenting, or maybe just bad luck. But the losers notice the pattern. Ben Hanscom, the quiet one with the books, starts to dig. He spends afternoons in the library, where the air smells like dust and forgotten questions. He flips through headlines with trembling fingers, and what he finds makes him sit very still. Every 27 years. That's how often it happens. Disappearances, tragedies, unexplained violence. Like clockwork. Only the clock is buried deep underground, and it ticks in silence. Ben tells the others. They listen, not because it's thrilling, but because it makes too much sense not to. They begin to remember the things they tried not to, the shadows in their dreams, the voices in the sink, the flicker of yellow eyes in places where no eyes should be. And somewhere beneath it all, the faint echo of laughter. Not the good kind, not the kind that bubbles up and fills a room. This laughter is hollow and hungry. In the book, it's Mike who finds all of this out, not Ben. Mike, who stays behind, who becomes the historian of a town that doesn't want its story told. But in the movie, Ben gets the role. It doesn't really matter who found it first, because once you know, you can't unknow. And once you suspect the town itself is sick, you begin to see the infection. It's in the way people look the other way. It's in the way grown-ups explain away screams at night. It's in the way a police car slows down but never stops. And the losers, they don't forget. Not yet. Because they're still young enough to notice when the world is wrong. Still brave enough to ask why. Still foolish enough to believe they can fix it, even if the adults would rather make tea.
Chapter 8. Derry's History. Not exactly tourist-friendly. Every town has a past. Some are painted on signs. Others are carved into plaques and placed beside fountains. Nice things. Neat things. But Derry's history is more like something buried in the backyard, something no one wants to dig up, because it smells strange, and it bites. It doesn't begin when the post office opened. It doesn't start with the first school bell. It begins long before people, before books, before anyone knew how to name fear. There's something beneath this town, a presence, a weight. It's not written in textbooks, but it shows up again and again in the margins, in soot-covered headlines, in gaps between photographs, in the silence after sirens. Ben Hanscom traces the pattern. In the library, where the air never quite warms up, he flips through old clippings, accidents, fires, explosions with no cause, entire families that vanished, a mass disappearance at an Easter picnic, a fire at the Black Spot, a nightclub built by black soldiers, erased in a single night. No culprits, just ash. He marks the dates and the numbers and the way each tragedy folds itself into the next, like pages turning without fingers. Later in the book, this job belongs to Mike Hanlon. His father kept an old photo album. It didn't hold weddings or birthdays, just Derry's shadow side. In it, Pennywise appears again and again, a blurry figure in the background, a smirk in the corner, a balloon in a crowd where no child is smiling. But in the movie, Mike is quiet for now. He hasn't opened the book yet. He's still watching, still waiting. Ben brings what he finds to the losers. They sit in a circle, listening to his voice, barely louder than a whisper. Every 27 years, something wakes up, something feeds. And every time, the town looks away. It builds over the blood. It plants flowers on graves with no names. It forgets. But the losers won't. Not yet. Because they're beginning to understand what they're up against. Not just a clown. Not just a creature. But a sickness. A curse. A story that keeps rewriting itself. Unless someone stops it. And even though they're small, even though their voices shake, they are ready to keep reading. Chapter 9. Pennywise doesn't rush, neither do we. Fear rarely sprints. It walks, slow, barefoot, down hallways you thought were empty. And Pennywise? He is the master of slow. He doesn't jump from shadows, he slides into them. He doesn't chase, he waits. Because children are delicate, like fruit left in the sun. And fear is ripening. He studies them, one by one, the losers. He learns their names, their habits, their cracks. And then, very gently, he taps the glass. Bill is the first, in the basement where the light doesn't quite reach the corners, where the water ripples even when the air is still. He hears something, a voice he knows too well. Bill. Georgie stands at the far end, soaked, still 7, still smiling. But something's wrong. The way he tilts his head, the way his eyes glow. Bill wants to run, but he stays, because hope is heavy, and it makes your feet forget how to move. Then there's Mike. He sees flames,
a door he couldn't open, the sound of screaming goats, and the smell of skin turning black. He remembers the fire, the one that took everything. Pennywise doesn't need to speak. Sometimes memory is enough. Eddie meets a leper, mouth oozing, skin sliding off like wet paper. It shuffles toward him, whispers about infections, and Eddie freezes because his mother always said everything is dangerous. Stan sees a painting, not a scary one, just wrong. The woman in it has no symmetry. Her smile bends sideways, and when she climbs out of the frame, she brings the cold with her. Ben sees a boy without a head. It runs down the library steps, books flying, pages screaming. And Beverly hears voices in the sink. Then the blood comes. Too much. Everywhere. Her father doesn't see it. Only the losers do. Richie? He doesn't know what he fears, so Pennywise shows him everything. Clowns, puppets, mirrors, masks. A room full of faces that aren't his own. They try to laugh it off, to say it's all a dream, a joke, a flu, something in the water. But deep down, they know. Something is watching them. Something that doesn't blink. Something that waits until they're alone, afraid, and full of flavor. Because Pennywise doesn't rush, and neither do we.
Chapter 10. The sewer is a metaphor and also wet. Some places don't need to be explained. You feel them. You smell them. You know with your bones that you don't belong there. The sewers of Derry are one of those places. They stretch under the town like veins, old, forgotten, humming softly with secrets, and water, and whispers. It's not just about plumbing. It's not about pipes. It's about what hides beneath. Because beneath every sidewalk, beneath every bedroom, beneath every "nothing's wrong, dear," there's something waiting. And that something is always listening. The losers know they'll have to go down there, not because they want to, but because that's where it is, where Pennywise lives, where the questions go unanswered. So they prepare. They don't wear armor. They wear sneakers. One of them brings a slingshot. Another brings a flashlight with a flickering bulb. They pack snacks, not because they'll need them, but because it's what kids do. They gather near the old house, the one no one talks about. Rotting wood, tilted windows, a door that sighs instead of creaks. The house is just a mouth, and the sewer is the throat. They go in anyway. The stairs moan, the wallpaper peels like old skin, and the air, it feels wrong, wet but dry, cold but heavy. There's a well in the basement, not the kind that brings up water, the kind that pulls things down. One by one, they climb. Their shoes splash, the walls narrow, the light bends in strange ways. Everything smells like mildew and metal,
And the sound is like breathing that never pauses. Beverly leads, Ben stumbles, Richie jokes, but too loudly. They're scared. Of course they're scared. But also, they're ready. Because facing what lives beneath your town, beneath your thoughts, beneath your name, is the only way to find out if it can be beaten. The sewer isn't just wet. It's a memory, a mirror, a maze where fear grows like moss. And if you walk far enough, you might find the heart of it. You might find him.
Chapter 11. Blood, Rituals, and Slightly Heroic Teenagers. There are moments in life when children decide to act like adults, but not in the way adults think. Not by doing taxes, not by mowing the lawn, but by facing something they shouldn't have to. Something ancient, something hungry, something no one else wants to see. In Derry, that moment comes in the dark. The losers climb through the sewer tunnels, quietly, mostly, except when Richie trips, or when Eddie breathes too fast. They reach the chamber. It doesn't have a name, just a feeling. The rocks sweat. The air curls in their throats. And in the center of it all is the monster, Pennywise, dancing, smiling, waiting. He doesn't roar. He doesn't lunge. He welcomes them, like guests, like toys. And for a moment, they hesitate, but only for a moment, because Beverly is missing, taken, floating in the dark, lost in the deadlights, those strange beams of cosmic truth that make your mind unravel like loose thread. The others see her, eyes wide open, body still, trapped in something that isn't sleep, but isn't quite death either. They don't know what to do, so Ben does what Ben always does. He feels. He walks up to her. He kneels. He whispers a poem she forgot she loved. And he kisses her. It's soft, awkward, sincere. And slowly, she breathes. She blinks. She comes back. No battle music plays. No hero pose. Just a boy with too many freckles and a heart too big for the tunnel they're in. The losers regroup. They hold hands. They stare into the face of a thing that has worn 1,000 faces. And they fight it. Not with swords, not with lasers, with slingshots, with words, with belief. They shout, they insult, they call him names that aren't scary, but somehow still sting. Because monsters don't know what to do when you stop being afraid. Pennywise begins to shrink, to twist, to fracture. And in that moment, in that breath of bravery, he slips away, back into the dark, back into the stone. Chapter 12. 27 years later. Nothing has changed except their haircuts. Time moves differently in Derry. It doesn't really pass. It loops. It forgets. It pretends. And the losers, they forget too. After the battle in the sewer, after the blood, after the light that wasn't really light. They make a promise, a blood oath, palm to palm, a circle of hands, a vow. If it ever comes back, so will they. Then they go home, one by one, street by street, state by state. The memories fade like chalk in the rain. Bill becomes a writer. His books sell well. People say he has a gift for horror. They don't know he lived it. Beverly becomes a fashion designer. Her clothes appear in glossy magazines. Her bruises now hidden behind silk and press releases. Ben builds buildings. He loses weight. He gains confidence. But he keeps the poem folded in a drawer. Eddie starts a business. Risk assessment. He wears a suit. He still carries an inhaler. Richie tells jokes. Big stages. Big lights. Laughter that echoes louder than his thoughts. Stan becomes an accountant. Orderly. Precise. His pencils are always sharpened. They forget. They move on. At least that's what they tell themselves. Only Mike stays, in Derry, like a lighthouse keeper no one notices. He becomes the librarian, not because he loves books, but because they remember things people forget. He watches, he listens, he waits. And then the cycle begins again. A child goes missing, then another. The newspaper shrugs. But Mike knows. He calls them, one by one. He says just a few words, and suddenly the fog lifts. Stan is the first to remember. He remembers too much, too clearly, too fast. He runs a bath. He writes a note, and quietly, he chooses not to return. The others answer. They tremble. They pack. They fly. Back to Derry. Back to the town that forgot them. Back to the thing that waits. They meet in a Chinese restaurant. The food is warm. The jokes are awkward. The smiles don't reach the eyes. But it feels familiar. Until the fortune cookies open, and something inside them moves. Not words, not numbers, but things that crawl, that hiss, that remember.
Chapter 13. Richie has a secret, and it's tender. Some secrets don't shout. They whisper. They hide in glove compartments, under pillows, inside jokes. Richie Twozier has always been loud. He talks fast. He jokes faster. His voice fills rooms, spills out of silence, covers every crack. Because if you never stop talking, maybe no one will notice what you're not saying. Back in Derry, the town that never forgets what it wants to forget, Richie begins to remember. Not just the monster, not just the screams, or the blood, or the tunnels, but something smaller, quieter, more dangerous in a different way. A moment, a glance, a boy. He remembers playing arcade games side by side, not speaking, just knowing. He remembers the sound of laughter that wasn't his, and how it made something in his chest ache, but in a way he didn't have words for. And he remembers the fear, not of clowns, not of monsters, of being known, of being different, of being seen. In the present, Richie walks the old streets with his hands in his pockets. He doesn't tell the others, not yet, maybe not ever. But Pennywise knows. Of course he does. He always knows the shape of your shame. He taunts Richie, in the voice of children, in the voice of truth. He whispers, "I know your secret." And Richie doesn't answer, because secrets like his aren't always ready to be spoken out loud, especially not in places like Derry. Later, during the final battle, when everything falls apart, and courage runs low, and hope flickers like a dying flashlight, Eddie dies. He doesn't scream, he just falls. And Richie is the one who won't let go. He clutches Eddie's shirt, he shakes him, he begs, but Eddie is already gone. The others pull Richie away. He doesn't want to move. He wants time to stop. He wants to say something he never said. He wants a do-over, or a miracle, or just one more joke. Later, when the dust settles, Richie returns to a spot near the old bridge. He brings a pocket knife. He finds the carving in the wood, 2 sets of initials, faded, weathered, half forgotten. R+E. He traces the lines, then he carves them again, just a little deeper this time. The wind.
Chapter 14. The Ritual of Chud, now with candles. Some things sound ancient, even before you understand them. The Ritual of Chud. Not a spell, not quite a prayer. More like a whispered dare between 2 souls to see who will blink first. In the book, it happens on the astral plane, a mental battle, a biting of tongues, a test of willpower and imagination between child and cosmic terror. But in the movie, it's something simpler, or maybe just more physical. Mike explains it, sort of. He says it came from the native people, a ritual to contain evil. He doesn't say the ritual failed, not at first, because hope, even borrowed hope, feels better than none at all. The losers agree to try it. What else can they do? They each must find something sacred to burn. Not sacred in the holy sense, but personal, anchored, heavy. So they search. Ben finds the page from the yearbook where Beverly was the only one who signed her name. Richie finds a token from the arcade, the place where he first didn't say what he wanted to say. Eddie brings his old inhaler, even though he's still not sure it was ever real medicine. Bill brings the bicycle, Silver, the one that once carried him faster than fear. Beverly brings the poem, the one that made her feel beautiful when everything else made her feel like a rumor. Mike brings the stone, from the Rock War, from the moment they all became losers, and something more than that, too.
They gather in the old place, the sewer, the heart of Derry's forgetting. They light a fire. They form a circle. They drop the items into the flames. And they speak the words Mike gives them. Words none of them really understand. But understanding isn't always required. Only faith, and fear, and the willingness to try one last time. The flames grow. The air shifts, and something stirs. Pennywise changes. No longer just a clown. Now something bigger, and smaller, and wrong. The deadlights return, blinding, buzzing. And just for a moment, it looks like the ritual is working. But it isn't. Because Pennywise has seen inside them. He knows they doubt. He knows they remember pain and shame and the cracks they've tried to fill with adulthood. He pushes back.
Chapter 15. The clown shrinks, and you drift off. The ritual has failed. The light grows teeth. The chamber shakes. The shadows no longer whisper, they scream. And still, the losers remain. Not because they're fearless, but because they remember who they were. Children, bruised, lonely, afraid. And together, more than any of that. Pennywise rises, taller, sharper, stranger. His voice is everywhere, in the walls, in their ribs, in their memories. He tells them they're nothing, that they never mattered, that they're still those small, scared kids hiding behind jokes and stutters and inhalers. And maybe he's right, but then, something happens. They stop running. They stop pretending they're fine. They look at him, really look, not with fear, but with recognition. Because monsters don't grow unless you feed them. And Pennywise, he's starving. They surround him. They speak softly. You're not real. You're not big. You're not powerful. You're just small. They say it again and again. Small, small, small. And with every word, Pennywise shrinks. The claws fade. The teeth dull. The voice cracks. Until he's just a trembling thing. No bigger than a child. No louder than a breath. Mike remembers an old saying. All living things obey the shape they're in. And when the shape becomes small enough, they reach for the heart. It's not beating. It's barely warm. It's red, but somehow pale. Together they hold it. They press. And it bursts like a lie. The light flickers. The chamber stills. And the thing that haunted their childhoods is gone. Not hidden, not sleeping, gone. Outside, the town begins to shift. Streets realign. The sky exhales. The memories settle. The losers emerge. Some with scars, some with tears, but all of them lighter. They go their separate ways again, but this time they remember. Not just the fear, not just the loss, but the love. The strange, fragile magic of being young and broken, and still enough to